Dust rose in slow spirals as the stagecoach rolled into the small town of Dry Creek. The sun was sinking low, painting the desert in shades of gold and crimson. Inside the coach sat a woman in a faded blue dress, clutching a small satchel to her chest. Her name was Clara Hart. To everyone else, she was just another traveler. But inside, she carried secrets she'd sworn never to speak of again. When the stage stopped, Clara stepped down, her boots touching the ground like she wasn't sure if she belonged there. Her eyes swept over the wooden saloon, the blacksmith's shop, and the dusty street. Life in Dry Creek looked rough but honest, something she hadn't had in years. "Miss, you need a hand with your bag?" a deep voice asked. She turned and saw a tall cowboy with sunburned skin, a broad hat, and eyes as steady as the horizon. "I can manage," she said quickly. He tipped his hat anyway. "Name's Luke Carter. I run the ranch north of town." She nodded, keeping her eyes low. Clara Hart." There was a flicker of something in Luke's gaze, curiosity, maybe, but he didn't press. He simply carried her satchel to the boarding house porch and said, "If you're looking for honest work, my ranch could use an extra hand. Cook, maybe, pays fair." Clara hesitated. Every part of her wanted to stay hidden, move on before questions started. But the truth was, she was tired of running. "I can cook," she finally said. "Then be at the ranch come sunrise." That night, Clara sat by the small window of her rented room. She watched the stars and tried to believe she could start over. But she knew her past had a way of catching up. By morning, she was on Luke's ranch. The land stretched wide and open, with horses grazing near the stream. The air smelled of hay and sun-warmed wood. Luke introduced her to the ranch hands, then showed her the kitchen, a small cabin with a cast-iron stove and shelves of dusty jars. Days turned into weeks. Clara cooked, cleaned, and helped mend fences when the men were short-handed. She worked quietly, kept to herself. But Luke noticed things, the careful way she watched the horizon, the way her hands trembled whenever riders passed near the ranch gate. One evening, after a long day branding cattle, Luke found her sitting on the porch steps. The sunset washed her face in orange light. "You're good at hidden things," he said softly. She froze. "What do you mean?" He leaned on the railing. "I've seen enough folks to know when someone's running from something. You don't owe me the truth, but I figure it might help you breathe easier." Her eyes glistened. "Some things can't be undone, Mr. Carter." Luke looked out toward the distant hills. "Maybe not, but a man's past don't define his worth out here. Same goes for a woman." She said nothing, but that night, she slept a little lighter. As summer deepened, life on the ranch grew harder, storms rolled through, fences broke, and Luke took a bad fall from his horse. Clara tended his wounds, scolding him for his stubbornness. "You'd do the same for anyone here," he said, smiling weakly. "Maybe," she replied, though her heart was beating faster than she liked to admit. Weeks passed, and their friendship grew. Luke's quiet kindness chipped away at her fear. For the first time in years, she laughed, real laughter that didn't feel borrowed or cautious. Then, one afternoon, a rider came thundering up the road. Dust clouded behind him like smoke. Clara recognized the man instantly, the sheriff from her old town. Her breath caught. She stepped back, heart pounding. "Luke Carter," the sheriff called. "We're looking for a woman, Clara Hart. Wanted for arson back in Kansas." Luke's jaw tightened. He glanced at her, then back at the sheriff. "You must have the wrong person. She fits the description. Burned down her employer's house, near killed a man." Clara stepped forward, her voice trembling. "He's right, it was me, but it wasn't what they said. The man, he tried to hurt me. The fire, it was an accident. I ran because no one would believe me." The sheriff frowned. "You're confessing then?" Luke stood between them. "You heard her. It was self-defense." The sheriff looked uncertain. "You got proof." "Proof enough," Luke said firmly. "You'll find no trouble here. Now ride on back and tell your lawman Dry Creek looks after its own." The sheriff hesitated, then turned his horse and rode off, muttering under his breath. Clara stood frozen. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "You could be in trouble." Luke turned to her, eyes steady. "I don't care what you did before, Clara. All I care about is the person standing in front of me now." Tears welled in her eyes. "Why, you don't even know me." He stepped closer. "Because I've seen how you care for others. How you work, how you fight to keep going. That's all I need to know." For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as a fugitive, not as a mistake, but as a person who still had a future. Days later, she found herself standing at the ranch fence, watching the sunrise. Luke walked up beside her, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. "You ever think about staying for good?" he asked quietly. She smiled faintly. "You'd want someone like me here." "I don't want your past," he said. "Just your future." Something inside her finally broke open, softly, like dawn after a storm. She nodded, tears mixing with her smile. "Then you've got it." The wind rustled through the grass, carrying away the weight of old fears. The ranch was still, the world vast and new again. And for the first time, Clara wasn't running anymore. She was home.